I don't know whether, I'm certainly not equipped to explain it, but it's a scientific fact, as Einstein proved, as you approach the speed of light, which they say is finite, nothing can go faster than light, everything slows down, everything becomes smaller, relatively, right?
Supposedly.
Supposedly. The object itself, the people, everything becomes smaller, and time becomes slower. In other words, clocks physically slow down, so somebody could go to another planet, come back here in 20 years, and maybe 500 years would have passed on Earth, and yet the people who made the trip would only be 20 years older.
Supposedly, yes.
Now, that's a boggling concept.
I don't pretend to understand it. I would like to participate in it because I'd be curious to come back every 100 years or every 500 years to see what we'd be up to. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, right. Having Ray back every 100 years would be
What would happen? I asked Carl this one night. I asked Carl about what would happen as a science fiction writer if you ever explored the possibility if they find something else that is faster than the speed of light. Now, they say that's impossible.
Well, they said breaking the sound barrier was impossible,
right.
too.
Now, what would happen to the whole physical world and mathematics in general if they found that you could go faster than the speed of light? What would that do?
I think we ought to ask Arthur Clarke or one of those super geniuses to write a story on that. Maybe they've already written it and we haven't read it. Or Carl himself should do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm the sort of person that goes out to Caltech, or I go to junior high schools, and 12-year-old kids come up to me and say, well, Mr. Bradbury, the Martian Chronicles? I say, yes. On page 112 of the Martian Chronicles? Yes. You have the moons of Mars rising in the east? I say, yes. They say, no. Because they don't. That's incorrect, and I've never corrected it. I've never gone back. Children are telling me about this all the time.
Why is that, Ray? Like my son is 7, my son Larry, fascinated by anything with Buck Rogers or science fiction. We as adults are fascinated, but why are youngsters so fascinated?
Because they're growing up the same way we did. It was just beginning, all of this talk in the old magazines when we were children, reading Popular Mechanics. So we are the children of the time. Jules Verne really was our uncle, our French uncle. And H.G. Wells really did inspire us with films like Things to Come. When I was 15, I went to see that with the first moonshot in it, with Cabal standing there and saying, which shall it be? Do you stay here on Earth and die, or do you go off into space to live forever? Well, the answer is you go off into space, don't you?
Yeah, I remember as a kid reading Buck Rogers. Now, they were talking about Buck Rogers in the 25th century, which is quite a ways off, and already a lot of those things, as a kid, that we thought were absolutely crazy and impossible, have already taken place. So he was really behind his time in a way, wasn't he, by several hundred years?
All those people, Phil Nolan, Dick Calkins, John Dilley, who invented it, and his son, who is now taking over the Buck Rogers Enterprises. But, well, that's the great challenge, of course, not only to predict futures, but to see if you can prevent them. By being some sort of, I don't know, a moral instructor. That's what Jules Verne was, wasn't he? He said, you can go around the world in 80 days if you want to. Give it a try. Get on a desert island somewhere and become a half dozen Robinson Crusoes and see if you can survive. So on the mysterious island, he does that. Right. And you come out feeling proud. And the moral pressure is very gentle. But then you go and invent things and humanize the inventions and change all of us. So we're in the midst of that, and it's tremendously exciting.
What will be the philosophical consequences? I think it bothers a lot of people. If all of a sudden you make contact with another civilization, it bothers a lot of people from the standpoint of religion. In other words, that we can communicate. And you all of a sudden you make contact with a civilization, really is going to make you feel very strange, isn't it? I mean, cause a lot of...
It'll be like going into St. Peter's on a summer afternoon, that wonderful feeling you have of being in a cathedral like that, or at the ending of Close Encounters. What you really have is the flesh of God moving one way, and our flesh moving this way, and they make contact like the portrait of Adam and God on the Sistine ceiling. That's a wonderful moment when the electricity leaps back and forth. And I think we will burst apart with pride at being part of this universal experience. I don't think it will diminish us. It will make us excited and want to live forever. So I'd love to live to see that happen.
Yeah, and I assume that we hope that those people may have found solutions to a lot of problems here maybe thousands of years ago.
Well, maybe
that we are still battling and have learned to solve it.
Simply by arriving, maybe they'll teach us that we're 5 billion people with a single skin around us. And if they teach us only that, then the encounter will be worth everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's great. When you start exploring the universe, you get into distances that are so mind-boggling that you can't conceptualize it. But a lot of people believe in the closed state of the universe. Some people say the steady state theory. Some say it's undergoing transformation. Things die and new things are born. What do you feel? That it's a constant under process of things created, stars?
It's much too big. And what you try to do is pick it up, if you can write a decent poem or a play or a story, and turn it into a metaphor that we can turn over and look at it and try to make sense of it. That's the most that we can do. But even if you talk to Carl Sagan about this, he would, I think, reply pretty much the same. We simply don't know. They have theories, and the theologians have faith. And between the two, an immense ignorance.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, you say, well, when you talk about infinity, and they say, what is infinity? Well, it goes on forever. And you say, well, something can't go on forever. It'll come to an end. And the next question was, okay, it comes to an end. What's beyond that? And you're back to the...
I guess the best answer is if we believe infinity goes on forever, we should want to go on forever with it. We're very privileged to be alive in the universe. We represent the life force here. So why not follow infinity out as far as it can go and ensure our own immortality that way? That's
if you had your choice of what period of history you'd like to be born in, would this be
This is it. I feel I'm very lucky to have been born right now and grew up to be part of all this and to be present. I was in London the night we landed on the moon for the first time, and to weep with happiness and joy for all of us that night, because it's the greatest night in the history of mankind. That night.
Yeah.
If I may say, my only claim to fame is my wife and I, Barbara. We were at ringside, so to speak, watching Gene Cernan and his crew take off for the moon, and that was the most exciting thing in the world. And I never believed I'd be able to tell my children someday. It was just breathtaking, and these guys have such great courage. Speaking of that, how come, in your opinion, Ray, that the moon program has been, and I know that we have many problems in our great country, but how come we must explore, how come the moon program is like in a downhill?
There's a failure of imagination, a failure of will, which I don't understand. Our president doesn't seem to care about it, which I'm very disappointed in. We need this kind of idealism to help us rise above the problems we've had the last 20 years. We've done so many things incorrectly, and when we do a thing right, I should think we'd be celebrating it more. I don't understand NASA. They don't know how to sell themselves to the people. So the budget has gone down year after year, and we've got to put it back in proportion, because it's 1/10 of 1% of the billions of dollars that go into the military. So less arms to all the other countries of the world and more into rockets. That's the way I look at it.
I'm all for that. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.